This is the Education Business Podcast for consultants and business owners providing services in schools. I'm Claire Riley, and I'll be sharing how to start, grow and scale your education business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Education Business Podcast. Today I'm going to run through 10 things that I wish I had done earlier in my business. They are lessons that I am trying to translate from Classroom Secrets into Education Business Club, and also hopefully you can learn from these things as well. So let's run through them, starting with number 1. I wish I had got a CFO in our business earlier. So that's a Chief Financial Officer. It can be somebody who is fractional, so you don't need to hire somebody full-time or anything like that. But you do need somebody to help you look at the numbers. So I think it's fine when there's just you and maybe you've got a few team members. But when you start increasing the revenue and you have more expenditure, especially if you have employed team members, and you might also be working on a deferred income membership model as well, things get more complicated. And what you can't do is rely on your accountant to have your best interests at heart. I know we all want the accountant who will be able to point out things that maybe we should have thought about or maybe we should know. But that's not really their job. Their job is to make sure that your accounts are filed and also to help you come up with ways to be taxed in the most efficient way. A CFO does a lot more than that. They're in the business. They're actually looking at the real figures. They're making sure that those figures are correct. They're making sure that you're compliant. They're thinking about how much things cost, if you can afford things in the future, whether you need to make savings. And it is a big investment. Our CFO is not full-time. But I certainly wish that I had had a CFO in place much, much earlier before we got to 7 figures. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I wish I'd have got a coach earlier. So I had a number of coaches starting from 2020, I think, but they weren't business coaches. First one was an exec coach. Then I had more of an all-round mindset coach. I've had different mentors in business, but not necessarily a one-on-one business coach who acts as a strategist and a mentor and a coach. That has been a game changer, not just in things that have been suggested, but the confidence levels that I have in order to move forward on the goals that I want to achieve. Somebody who says, your goals are not too big, they are possible. I've seen those things happen before. I've done those things myself. Here's how to make sure that they happen. If I was to do it all again, I would make sure I had that person who actually had the proper experience. And that's the key thing, the proper experience. The third thing that I wish I had done earlier in my business is have an understanding of how to train properly. Have a set process of how to do it. Know that it needs to be somewhere. Know that it needs to be on video, to have that constant mindset of, is the training there? Am I setting up the team for success? It's actually quite a hard mindset to foster, I think. I actually think I'm quite good at it now, but it's been a long journey. It's not a switch in mindset, it's a process. So I wish I'd understood how to train earlier and been accepting of what it really takes and the time it takes and the money it takes and what it takes from the founder as well. The fourth thing I wish I'd have done earlier in my business is believed in myself. Like, this is such a huge thing. And I have been on a journey that has been long and come to a more positive point over the last 12 months where I have believed in myself a lot more. Even though I'd built this company, I think I believed in myself for a certain point and then maybe had even more imposter syndrome around the fact I'd built this thing that I was surprised about and had beliefs that everyone could do it better and maybe I wasn't good enough. And that didn't help at all. One of the things that having a coach has really helped me is that validation piece to believe in myself more and what I do know and what I do have experience in and where my skills lie. And it can be really hard to recognise not believing in yourself. And I've reflected on how would I describe to you to know whether or not you believe in yourself, because it's one of those where you look back and you realise, oh, I didn't believe in myself, but things are much better now. And so I'll tell you this little story which might help. I remember a couple of years ago, one of my coaches saying, do you believe in yourself? And I responded with, I don't know, and cried. And I think at the time I thought that I must believe in myself. Looking back, I realised that meant that I didn't believe in myself. And at that time, what I was really hoping for is other people to believe in me, to give that validation that I had value and knew what I was talking about. And that never happened. And now I've rediscovered who I am. So this is a huge pitfall that you need to watch out for. Not believing in yourself is bad for business. So I wish earlier I had believed in myself and realised when I wasn't believing in myself. Number 5, I wish I had understood how to plan properly. So in some ways, I'm scared of too much of a detailed plan because I like to iterate. But there are ways that you can plan where it's not super detailed that dictates your waking every moment. And you can plan in a way that is focused very much on goals, how many of this people you need to have, or how many of this person you need to get in a certain funnel, or what you're trying to achieve with this kind of resource line. And I didn't really understand how to plan. It was just very random, and then we would chase after lots of different things all at the same time because there was no plan which said, this is what we're doing then and this is what we're doing after that. And there was this reluctance to stick to something in some ways because it might feel boring. But actually what happens then is you don't really focus on anything. It's better to just say, right, let me focus on these 2 things, because if I focus on 5 things, I won't focus on anything. And so now I enjoy planning in many ways. The 6th thing that I wish I had done earlier in my business is viewed everything as something to build and pass on. So that is how I view things, especially at Classroom Secrets now. Education Business Club, it's not the same because it's a startup. I'm the only person in the business. But I have the mindset of how to build something and pass it on to someone else. So right now I am working with the marketing team at Classroom Secrets, and my whole mindset is build it, make it into a system, make sure that system has everything it needs, and then let somebody else manage that system. And then together we look at tweaking, and hopefully eventually the team worry about the tweaking as well. The 7th thing that I wish I'd done earlier in my business is recognise when I'm not the right person for the job. So there was an element of that. I stepped into the CEO role, and after a time I had a managing director, and that was really me trying to get into a position where I am not the person who is overseeing the whole thing. That is not something I enjoy, the whole management side of things. And I stayed in the CEO role too long, unhappily really. But I suppose I didn't realise there was another way. So I think I'd be better now at recognising when I might be unhappy in a role again and realising it's because I'm not the right person for the job. And I think there's an element of not understanding exactly what you do need as well, and you've got to go through a process. But I wish I had done that earlier in my business. The 8th thing that I wish I had done earlier in my business is control the level of influence that is coming at me. So I recognise that I am somebody who is quite good at presenting, quite good at being out there and telling a story, saying a thing, communicating something. But I'm also somebody who is easy to influence. And I recognise that. I seem to pick up lots of different things along the way. And what I've realised over time is that while it's good that you're willing to listen to everybody, what can happen is you end up being influenced by people who have really great intentions, but perhaps want to take you down a path that meets their agenda rather than your own agenda or the company's agenda. And I've had this understanding of being influenced for a long time, actually, but it's still difficult for me to control that. Really difficult, even though I have an awareness. And so part of that for me has been stepping back from certain situations to make sure that the level of influence can be controlled by me, because if I'm not careful, it isn't good. And so I wish I had understood how to control the level of influence on me from people around me earlier. And it's all a journey, isn't it? We've got to learn all these things, and it might not be something that you struggle with. You'll have your own things. But for me, it is being influenced by others. The 9th thing that I wish I'd done earlier in my business is stop getting up so early. Yeah, I used to get up at 5 a.m. and there's nothing wrong with that. To be honest, it was more needs must. Like, I have to get time in the day because my children are young. They're a bit older now, and I do have the school holidays, and I think in some ways the type of work that I'm doing has made it more manageable. I am actually getting up earlier at the moment, but it's 6 a.m. I'm getting up and I'm doing an hour. I got to the point where I think it damaged my health, to be honest, getting up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. every single day. Not that that was bad, but because I was going to bed so late, I also was pushing through with quite a lot of mineral and vitamin deficiencies. Like, it's just not helpful at all. And it got to a point where there was just exhaustion. But if you have a brain like mine, you're going to push through anyway. And that is unhelpful, really unhelpful. So yes, I would stop sleep depriving myself earlier. So I really try not to do that now. And the last thing that I wish I had done earlier in my business is educate the team on who I really am instead of trying to meet their expectations. So lately, I have just been my unapologetic self. It's very difficult when you become a leader and you have different people looking up to you, all with their different perceptions, different expectations, different experiences that they've brought from the past that then they bring into your situation and sometimes hold you responsible for. That was something that I found really, really hard, very emotional, to be honest, an emotional journey. And what I've really tried to do over the last 6 months or so is just be who I am and not apologise for that and not worry about it and know that I am the person who needs to be here in this company. And it's okay if people don't like that, and it's okay if they do like that, and they have to make decisions based on the truth, not me pretending to be somebody else or trying to be liked. Because I'm not an unlikable person. I'm quite likable, to be honest, if I do say so myself. But we can't be everybody's cup of tea, and that's absolutely fine. And I think I've done a lot of apologising for being entrepreneurial in a teaching world, as if I'm like a fraud teacher. But the reason why the whole team have jobs is because of what I did. And it's okay to be me. And so that's the 10th thing that I'd wish I'd done earlier in my business that I'm doing now. So I'd love to know if any of these resonated with you. Are there things that you will take from this, thinking, well, I do that and I want to act in a different way? Are there other things that you've learned in your business that you don't do anymore? And do you want me to go into more detail in any of these? Because I could go into more detail in any of these points in Education Business Club, because we have the audio lessons which are released into the club. They're basically like mini podcast episodes that are very focused on answering a specific question or being on a specific topic. Next week, I'm going to have another guest episode, and so I'll see you then. Thank you for listening to the Education Business Podcast. To get more information to grow your business, sign up at educationbusinessclub.co.uk.